areas. Asha Paras Foundation has selected women empowerment, peace and harmony, and gender sensitization as their three main areas of work since their inception. And they have been working on these since day one to achieve their goals. Center for Women's Studies, Pondicherry University was established in July 1999. The prime aim of the center is the creation of a critical awareness and sensitivity towards women's issues in every field and a holistic approach to gender studies. Understanding gender discourse is crucial as it addresses issues of equality, stereotypes, and societal expectations related to gender. In today's context, it is relevant for fostering inclusivity, challenging biases, and thereby promoting a more equitable and diverse society. I welcome you all to the day one sessions of the one-week international online training program on gender discourse in society. First will be the welcome address. I'm delighted to introduce here Dr. Ashita, Head of Center of Women's Studies, Pondicherry University. She wears not only the hat of her esteemed head of department, but also holds the well-deserved title of a best teacher. In the realm of academia, her areas of specialization include third world feminism, gender studies, and black feminism. She has been a beacon of inspiration who imparts us with knowledge with an unparalleled passion. Today, I am privileged to invite her to deliver the welcome address. I welcome you, ma'am. Rashida ma'am, here.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am. I
Yeah.
welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you, Lakshmi. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Good evening, everyone. It gives me immense pleasure to deliver the welcome address. Without wasting much time, I would just like to welcome the chairperson for Asha Paras for Peace and Harmony Foundation, the person behind conceiving this program, Professor Asha Shukla, former Vice Chancellor, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar University of Social Sciences. I welcome you, ma'am, on behalf of the Center for Women's Studies to this one-week international online training program. Thank you very much for collaborating with us. I am pleased to welcome Professor Clement S. Lords, our Honorable Director, Directorate of Culture and Cultural Relations, Pondicherry University, for uh, agreeing to give the inaugural address. I welcome you, sir, on behalf of Center for Women's Studies and Asha Paras for Peace and Harmony Foundation. Uh, Today we will be having two technical sessions. The session one is on discourse on domestic cruelty against women by Ms. Abhisha Isaac, Advocate High Court of Judicature at Madras and Madurai Bench of Madras, Madurai. I welcome you, ma'am, for today's session.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
The second session is on gender discernment in edifice of society by Dr. Molly Kuruvilla, former director and professor, Department of Women's Studies, University of Calicut, Kerala. I welcome you, ma'am, on behalf of
Thank
both
you,
the
Ashita. Thank
organizations.
you.
I welcome all the participants. I welcome all the faculty members who have joined today for this one-week online training program. And last but not the least, I welcome Dr. Kamla Veni, the coordinator for this program. So with this, I hand it over to Lakshmi. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your inspiring welcome address. Your words have such a positive tone for our event. Next, I would like to welcome Dr. Kamlaveni to talk about the program. Dr. Kamlaveni is currently working as Associate Professor in Center for Women's Studies, Pondicherry University. Her area of specialization include reproductive health and gender issues. She has edited 5 books and presented and published more than 49 papers in numerous national and international conferences. I'm so happy to welcome her to give a brief about the program. I welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you, Lakshmi.
Thank you.
Honorable former Vice Chancellor, Managing Director, Professor Asha Shukla, Madam. Respected Chief Guest, Professor Clemens, Sir, Director, Directorate of Culture and Cultural Relationships, Pondicherry University. Dr. Ashita, Head, Center for Women's Studies, Pondicherry University. Dr. Jaya Pukan, Faculty, Women's Studies, Bargatullah University, Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh. Abhisha Isaac, Advocate, Madurai Bench of Madras, Madurai. Dr. Molly Kuruvilla, former Director and Professor, Department of Women's Studies, University of Calicut, Kerala. My colleagues, Dr. Meena Gopal, Associate Professor, Dr. Chenchu and Dr. Mercy Gante, Assistant Professors, who are the supporting pillars of this program, faculty members from various colleges and universities, my dear students and scholar participants across the country, good evening to all. It's my privilege to give a small brief about this program. The idea of conducting this program emerged a year ago. However, it took a little long time to get the shape and come into this stage. With great enthusiasm, the Center for Women's Studies and Asha Paris Foundation for Peace and Harmony planned the program and contacted the experts. The experts across the world readily agreed to share their knowledge with us. Since the 1950s, an increasing use of the term gender has been seen in the academic literature and public discourse for distinguishing gender identity from biological sex. Money and Hampson define gender term as what a person says or does to reveal that he or she has a status of being boy or a girl, man or a woman, masculinity or femininity of a person. Gender is a complex issue, constituents of which encompasses styles of dressing, patterns of moving, as well as ways of talking rather than just being limited to biological sex. Over the years, the perception of the issue gender has been changing and developing from essentialism to social constructionism. Essentialism suggests that gender is a biological sex. By contrast, social constructionism suggests that gender is constructed within a social or cultural discourse. Due to its complex nature, gender introduced numerous debates over the extent to which gender is biological construct or a social construct. Social constructionists employ discourse analysis as a method for research on gender identity. In this training program, the experts will explore the different views on gender and the nature of gender at discourse in various societies across the globe. With this small briefing about the program today, we are here to reap the benefits of the knowledge shared by the experts. In addition, Dr. Ashita, head the Center of Women's Studies, was so supportive and positive about organizing this program. In spite of his busy schedule, Professor Clement Sir readily agreed to serve as a chief guest for this program. Finally, I would remember that it was all the participants who has made this program a grand success. Thank you all for providing me this opportunity to brief about this program. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I hope you all now got an idea about the program. Once again, thank you, ma'am. Next will be the inaugural address. We are happy to have Dr. Clement Lutz as our chief guest. Dr. Clement Lutz is working as a professor in Department of English and currently serving as a Dean of School of Humanities, Pondicherry University. He is a creative writer, critic, translator, self-taught artist, and a specialist in Indian writing in English and translation studies. He is the author of Prevention Squeal and Other Stories. He has contributed a series of 15 articles to PCM Children's Magazine. He has also done an extensive research on Arundhati Roy's works and submitted a monograph on her under UGC Minor Project Scheme in 2001. He is the recipient of Pavinder Pugase Award 2010 for his outstanding contribution to art and literature. Currently, Dr. Clement is also serving as Director of Directorate of Culture and Cultural Relations, Pondicherry University. Now, I cordially invite Dr. Clement Lutz to deliver the inaugural address. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you so much, Lakshmi. Dr. Ashita, head of the Center of Human Studies, Dr. Kamalaveni, associate professor and the organizer of this program, and all the distinguished speakers, invited guests, participants, scholars, and students. I am very happy to be with you on this online international training program on gender discourse in society. Ever since I put this invitation on my Facebook, there are a lot of inquiries about it because this is the need of the hour. Not only from one department, several departments are interested in this, and it has got its own reachability. And this reachability, I think, would continue even after your program is over. And that is what we are expecting from every one of us. Gender discourse includes a whole range of different symbolic activities, including style of dress, patterns of consumption, ways of moving, as well as talking. Cultural representation of masculinity include appearance, that is looks, clothes, strength, having male friends, heterosexuality, having a girlfriend, rejecting homosexuality, and getting respect primarily through economic status, athletics, toughness, and violence. Similar traits such as sensitivity, sweetness, supportiveness, gentleness, warmth, passivity, cooperativeness, expressiveness, modesty, humility, empathy, affection, tenderness, and being emotional, kind, helpful, devoted, and understanding have been cited as stereotypically feminine. And when you are trying to understand this, one thing you must be keeping in mind, because what is attributed as the things that are meant for men, and what are the things that are attributed to the qualities of women, this is not something that we are doing now, but this has been here for centuries. More than that, there is a very beautiful novel. I think that all of you must have read it, Gulliver's Travels. And in Gulliver's Travels, usually, being an English teacher, I should tell you the first two books are prescribed, and the last two books, third is not a very popular one, but the fourth book is a very popular one, and the book is not included in any of the syllabus just because by the time Swift wrote that fourth book, he has turned insane, and therefore the book should not be read. That is the popular conception. But unfortunately, he has not turned insane. And if you follow the book very carefully, you can understand it is the world's greatest satire. Here, the protagonist goes to the land of horses, and this is the island dominated by horses. And in fact, no ordinary human being is living there. But there also, at one particular context, you find the novelist describing the qualities that are appreciable as far as the men is concerned, and the other qualities that are attributed to women as the highest qualities. There also you can see this distinction as far as uh, men is concerned, it is the manliness and it is the strength. And as far as the woman is concerned, it is the comeliness. They call it comeliness, but this is an old English word that includes all the characteristic traits of a woman. But you see that distinction, there also you have. And not only that, we talk about this gender discrimination and all that sitting in a chamber, air-conditioned chamber. But unfortunately, in my opinion, being an outsider, not so good in the subject that you are dealing with, but as an outsider, I would say that it would reach every part of our country, because most of the people and most of women in general are not aware of this. And in fact, I can tell you one small example. This is from my own experience. I was working as a CSS volunteer when I was doing my MA, and they have allotted one small work to our team. The team has to go to Kurichikuppam village. We are in Pondicherry, and Kurichikuppam village is not quite far away, and it is a fisherman area. And towards the extreme end of the beach, if you go there, then you can see the small village. It is even considered as a village only, even though it is in the city. There, I had an interaction with some slum dwellers regarding the small savings. And unfortunately, when I interacted with them, the first question that I should ask is that tell me the name of your, because usually the men will go to the sea, and 3 or 4 days they won't come because they are all fishermen and they have to go for fishing. And these houses are occupied only by women and children. And when I interacted with them and asked that who is the head of the family, then immediately that woman would say, you please take down Rama's father. or, Sugandhi's father, like that. But they will never tell the name. But when I specifically asked her to mention the name, she became very angry and said that you happen to be a teacher, but you are asking the name of my husband. How can I tell the name of my husband? My dear friends, we should not take it for granted that they have such lovable husbands and therefore they don't want to utter even the names. No, certainly it is not. And when I wanted to know more about the activities of her husband, she told me categorically that he would always come home totally drunk and will go on beating, wife, and you will not take care of children, etc. But in spite of that, this is the condition that you should keep in mind. And if you call out all the important points regarding this issue, whether they have come out with any possible solution, I can tell you that there are a few important points that we should keep in mind. And certainly, if we employ them, we'll be able to achieve success. Number one, we should resolve to put an end to this discrimination against women. Number two, we have to eliminate the forced marriages. Third one, we must promote shared responsibility. And this is what is not happening even in our house. The kitchen work, they say that this belongs to women and men should not do any kind of work. And there are many people, men, who happily say that they could not even make coffee. And I think that this is not something, one should not be proud to say this and one should be ashamed. But in spite of that, this is what is happening in many places. And the equal rights in property ownership. This is another thing that our women may not be knowing much. And in many families, the property is divided among the male members of the family, and the female members may not be knowing that they have got a right to ask for a share. And usually nothing is given to them. And even educated women are also not going to the court or anywhere in order to claim their property because they have got their own right. It has been already there in the law, but unfortunately, it is not getting, function. That is the point. And Martin Luther King, so many years ago, has come out with a lecture that is a very memorable lecture, and all of us know about this lecture. I have a dream. That is supposed to be the world famous lecture. In I Have a Dream, Martin Luther King says that how these rules and regulations are kept only in the book, but whether they are getting implemented or not, that is a different question. And even the Negroes, when the great American Abraham Lincoln, when he signed the Emancipation Proclamation, freeing all the Negroes, according to Martin Luther King, it is just giving a check. A rich man, a millionaire is giving a check to a poor man, and the poor man is very happy that he will encash it. And when he goes to encash the check, the problem comes because the check is returned to him with a small, rubber stamp, insufficient fund. That means the millionaire has no account in that particular bank. If so, then what is the point in giving a check alone? Therefore, only in law it is there, in the law book it is there, but unfortunately it is not getting implemented anywhere, and the Negroes are, denied of their rights. In the same way in India, this discrimination continues. Even though we have laws, but unfortunately the laws are not properly enforced. And that is where we are meeting the problem. And if they get the equal rights in property ownership, probably they will be able to get quite a lot of, encouragement. And we have to promote empowerment of women through teaching. That is very important. But even when you come to literature, only there are a few people who write about that. And the Muslim writer, Anis Young, she is the one who writes quite a lot about these issues. And her Unveiling India has been selling like, hot cakes. And there she reveals, there she tells us a small story, and that story, I think that this is about when women are given the proper place, then what would happen in the future? Can they be better advocates? Can they be better administrators? And this small story that I'm going to tell you before I complete my talk, this would make us to think about. Of course, the story, some of you may be knowing it. A king goes to his, city during the night time for the night round. And unfortunately, it is back of beyond village because this happened so many years ago. And the villagers have not properly lighted their huts. And everything is in the dark. The king asked the minister, what has happened? Why everything is in dark? Why I could not see any light in any of these slums? I don't think that they have no money, but they may go to sleep early, or they may not be having the oil lamps with them. And whatever small things they have, it must have extinguished because of the air and breeze. And immediately the king orders for these oil lamps and gives to the head of the family, who happens to be men. Please burn this oil lamp. And next time when I come over there, I should see that all the houses are properly, lit. And he goes away. And after a month, he comes to the place again. But unfortunately, again, the entire place is covered in darkness, engulfed in darkness, and no light is burning. And the king tells the minister, I already asked you to supply the oil lamps and oil to every man in the house. Have you done it? Immediately the minister answers, sir, I did it. But what happened? I think they are not using it properly. So now let me come out with a different rule. You give the oil and the lamp to all the women, only women in the houses. And let me see what happens after I come again. Then after a month, he comes again, and this time the job is entrusted to women. And when he comes again to the same place, he is very happy to see that the in every house the lamp is burning. And this clearly shows that the encouragement and this is what is required. And if it is given by the proper hand, then the sky is the limit. Therefore, as a student of literature and as a teacher of English, that this is what I can tell you about this thing a little. Since I already told you that I have not mastered your subject, and only this much I can tell you, and probably that it has got its own lessons, and you will be able to expand it into various insights and ideas and come out successfully. And thank you again for inviting me to your, very important and very prominent program. And I am very happy that I have become a part of it. And I hope that this training will help you quite a lot. And this is also going to be one of our successful programs in our university. Thank you so much.
Um, Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for your engaging words. It surely was a pleasure listening to you. Next is a presidential address. We are so happy to have Professor Asha Shukla, such an eminent personality, to deliver the presidential address of our event. Professor Asha Shukla is a former Vice Chancellor of B.R. Ambedkar University of Social Science and Managing Director of Asha Paras Foundation for Peace and Harmony. She is the Chief Editor of the research journals Asha Paras International Journal of Gender Studies and Asha Paras International Multidisciplinary Research Journal. She is an accomplished academician with research experience of over 31 years, teaching experience of 34 years, and total of 36 years in the area of teacher education, women's studies, and Hindi literature. With all due respect, I would like to invite Professor Asha Shukla for the presidential address. I welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you, Lakshmi.
Thank you.
I am audible.
Yes, you are audible, ma'am.
Good evening to all of you. Before I start to say few words, first I want to congratulate to all of you because today is a very auspicious day for India, very special day for every Indian, because today is the day of Pran Pratishtha or our God Sri Ram at Ayodhya. It was done by Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji. So, congratulations to all of you. Friends, Professor Clement rightly said that this is not only the subject of women's studies, it is the subject of all institutions, all universities, all colleges, all family, and all society. So next time, we will request to you to do the collaboration in huge manner also. Thank you, sir. Friends, our NGO, Asha Paras Foundation for Peace and Harmony and Women's Studies Center of Pondicherry University, organizing this international online training program on gender discourse in society. This program is output of sincere continuous efforts of Dr. Kamla Beni and her team. So first, before I should say something, I want to congratulate to my dear Dr. Kamla Beni and her team and want to give my sincere blessings and thanks to WSC, your HOD and colleagues of Pondicherry University Administration for this. Please convey to your Vice Chancellor also. When we were in planning process of this international training program, then always we were encountering a big question, why we want to organize this program on gender discourse. Every time, the people who are working in women's studies always used to listen that women are very empowered. Must be. But I think without gender sensitization, we cannot work on gender equality. And after gender equality, we will start working on gender equity. Then we will go for women empowerment. Women's studies, also known as feminist studies, include various academic fields such as politics, economics, sociology, medicine, history, police affairs, and many others, seen through the perspective of feminism. Attempts to define women's studies have struggled because of the relatively novel and often changing nature of the subject, which by 2015 was still regarded as being in development. Women's studies had yet to fully determine its subject, its methodology, and its theory. Women's research has inspired methodological exploration in areas of representation, ethics, and collaborations. Whenever we discuss about gender and livelihood, it aims to understand the larger question of livelihood and how it is entwined to the question of women livelihood. Activities in India and globe society and how livelihood generation initiatives can lead to economic empowerment of women. Friends, I'm working two specific areas also, crime against women and human trafficking. So, few words I want to discuss this time. Across the world, violence against women is recognized as a symptom of unequal gender based power relations. In India, regressive patriarchal values, which define socially and culturally determined norms, perpetuates gender hierarchies. They are deeply embedded in society, community, and family, which disproportionately penalize women and girls, which begins even before birth by killing female feticide. We all know the details in this regard. If we are think about human trafficking, no one can deny the fact that human trafficking is human exploitation at its worst. Database of human dignity and human spirit regarding the human trafficking is very serious. It's the crudest form in commercial sex trafficking. It is a world where men and women are sold and purchased, are commoditized and exploited in multifarious ways, leading to complete demolition of human being. So these are the issues, and so many also: masculinity, sexuality, research methodology. What are the other perspectives in the gender perspective? What we are facing in India, in Asia, or in global society, we are going to discuss in 7 days international programs. So when we are thinking on above all these issues, we feel to be discussed these type issues in depth, we should decide to be organized this online international training program on behalf of our both organizers. Really, I want to welcome to all our resource persons who are from India and who are from other countries. Our very respected participants, I know Professor Shobha Shinde, Sushila Goyal from State Women Commission, IS Bhamati Bala Subramaniam. These type persons are participating in this program. This shows the utility of the program and obviously love to us also. I really want to thank chief guest of the inaugural session. Again wants to give to thanks and blessings to Kamla Beni, Dr. Jaya Fukan, Tulab Chablikar, and again my sincere regards to your Women's Studies Center HOD and your respected Vice Chancellor. I also want to thank Professor Molly Corvella and Advocate Avisha for their accepting our invitation to be here. And I know I always listen to Molly and trust today also we will get much more for this particular subject, and we will initiate the issues not only in India but with the help of the others globally, and we will do much more for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your words. Next will be the vote of thanks. We are happy to have Dr. Jaya Fukan, Faculty of Women's Studies, Barkatullah University, Bhopal, to deliver the vote of thanks. Dr. Jaya Fukan has been invited as a resource person in many gender sensitization training workshops. Her academic experience also includes development of modules for IGNOU. 5 books, many research papers on women-related books have been published so far. She has also been associated with curriculum development of women's studies. With all due respect, I would like to invite you to deliver the vote of thanks. Welcome you, ma'am.
Good evening.
Do-
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. You're audible. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. It has been such an honor and privilege to be a part of this one-week international online training program on gender discourse in society. On behalf of Center for Women's Studies, Pondicherry University, and Asha Paras for Peace and Harmony Foundation, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to the chief guest of today's inaugural session, Professor Clement Lords, Director, Directorate of Culture and Cultural Relation, Pondicherry University, for his gracious presence and encouraging inaugural address. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation. Your thoughts have truly inspired us. Thank you, sir. I thank Professor Asha Shukla ma'am, former Vice Chancellor of ROS and Managing Director of Asha Paras for Peace and Harmony Foundation, for her presidential remarks and unconditional support and guidance in organizing this program. A big thank you, ma'am, for your outstanding leadership and your guidance. Special thanks to Ashita ma'am, Head Center for Women's Studies, Pondicherry University, for her inspiring welcome address and constant guidance and support to shape the training program. Heartfelt thanks to all the resource person and distinguished speakers of the training program who will be delivering their session on different dimensions of gender discourse in society. They have joined us from different places in spite of their busy schedule. So thanks to all. Special thanks to today's resource person, Molly ma'am and Abhisha ma'am. They will be delivering their technical sessions. Special thanks to organizing team of the training program, course coordinator Dr. Kamla Meni ma'am and her team, reporters of the session, technical coordinator Love Kumar, for their efforts and hard work. Thanks to all the participants for participation in the program. I hope that this program will be beneficial for you all. And in the end, thanks to all, and thanks to all the faculty members who have joined for today's sessions. Thanks to you. Thank you so much.
Lakshmi. Lakshmi, are you there? Lakshmi.
I think you should continue.
Yes, ma'am. So thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Jaya ma'am, for a wonderful, vote of thanks that you have given. Now we'll move on to the technical session. I take great pleasure in welcoming Molly ma'am. Welcoming Abhisha Isaac for the first technical session. So I think I should talk about Abhisha Isaac, that we have been associated for past 10 years. And she has been such a wonderful person in delivering, the lecture on gender issues and especially related to law and crime. So we are happy to have you, Abhisha, as a resource person for this program. Welcome you to the technical session 1.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. Shall I start?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
All right. A very good evening to one and all present here. My special regards to Professor Asha Shukla, former Vice Chancellor of BROS, and Dr. Kamala Veni. It's such a pleasure always to meet and interact with Dr. Kamala Veni, both virtually and directly as well. And to all the dignitaries present here, a very, very good evening. I deem it a great privilege, in fact, to be part of this international online training program. And thank you, Dr. Kamalaveni, once again for inviting me over. All right, to begin with, let me share a small presentation that I have prepared for all of you. Is it visible? Can all of you see it?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, yes.
All right. So the discussion that we are going to have for the next 40 minutes is on domestic cruelty against women. And what I usually do is when I address lawyers, usually the crowd that I address is either law students or lawyers. And a lot of times it is women from different universities and other colleges as well. So I usually talk about a very practical perspective when it comes to legal discourse and application of laws. So even today, that is the trajectory that I want to take. So we are going to have our discussion based on few basic concepts of law and then view it from a very practical lens so that all of you, the participants here, the professors and dignitaries here, can see how it works in reality, and we can have a reality check of what is happening around us from a legal lens. So why this topic? So according to the latest National Crime Records Bureau report, which came in 2023, December, and which have statistics about whatever happened in 2022 of all the crimes that happened in the country, it has revealed a very distressing surge of 4% rise in crimes against women in India. The majority of it being crimes committed against women by somebody they were close to in a domestic relationship. So as you can see, 31.4% of crimes against women was committed by husband or relatives. Now, this is a very distressing scenario because as all of you know, it is the people who are close by, the people who the woman is in an intimate relationship with or a very close domestic relationship with, are the type of people who are inflicting these sorts of crimes against women. And almost 51 FIRs approximately were registered every hour in the year 2022 of crimes against women, soaring from 3,71,503 in 2020 to 4,45,256. So there are two ways of looking at it. When I was hearing a resource person talk about it in another forum, so there are two ways of looking. One is definitely there is an increase in crimes against women. The other thing is women have become bolder. They have started reporting it more. They have started voicing out their concerns more. They've started taking things into their own hands. So there are two ways of looking at it. In this backdrop, let us move into what is domestic cruelty against women and what are the discussions around it. So usually, because this is a training program, I want few basics to be known to everybody. So that is why I want to discuss a few legal provisions which deal with domestic cruelty against women. So firstly, it is, as all of you know, a ground for criminal prosecution, and it is a punishable criminal offense. And it is also a ground for divorce and a ground for child custody. So as I like to say, domestic cruelty or domestic violence, those are very interchangeable terms when it comes to the legal parlance. They are, this aspect is dispersed across several realms of law. It is both in criminal law, it is in civil law, which deals with divorce and child custody, and it also comes in certain other welfare legislations as well, which I will discuss as we go ahead. So the basics, yes. So all of you, yes?
Your PPT is not moving, it's on the first slide.
Oh, it's on the first slide, is it? One second. Is it moving now?
Yeah.
All right. One second. Yes. So all of you know about the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005, which we usually call as Domestic Violence Act 2005. Now, there are some basic misconceptions that all of us have when it comes to domestic violence or domestic cruelty. Immediately, what we think of is, okay, it usually is something that is undergone by a daughter-in-law. Because we hear about dowry debts, we hear about husbands abusing daughter-in-law, we hear about mothers-in-law abusing daughters-in-law, things like that. So immediately when we hear the word domestic violence, we connect it to somebody who is in the position of a daughter-in-law. And secondly, because of the word violence in the literal meaning or the usual meaning, we always assume that it deals with something that is physical, that it involves some sort of physical abuse or physical violence. Now, these are the two common misconceptions that even many people who are in gender discourses, who are into gender rights, deal with. So that is why I want to say, quote a few provisions from the Domestic Violence Act so that all of us know how broad and how wide the law actually treats domestic violence or domestic cruelty. So just three important things that we have to do. We have to look at. Aggrieved person means any woman. So any woman, this word is very crucial because it does not restrict itself to a daughter-in-law or to a mother-in-law or to a daughter or to a sister. It says any woman who is or has been in a domestic relationship. So it need not even be somebody who is currently in a marital relationship or in any relationship in the nature of marriage, which I mean as live-in relationships and so on. Or it does not even mean that the person should currently be somebody's wife or somebody's daughter-in-law, sister-in-law, or mother-in-law. That is why the law says who is or has been in a domestic relationship with the respondent. The respondent is the opposite side against whom you have a complaint, and who alleges to have been subjected to any act of domestic violence by the respondent. So one thing that we have to remember is domestic violence can be inflicted upon any woman irrespective of her position in the family, and the act also gives the same meaning to a person who has undergone or who has been subjected to domestic violence. The only thing that you should remember is no man can file a domestic violence complaint. So this is a very special legislation that was passed by the parliament, taking into consideration the centuries or the decades of abuse that women have undergone and the gender equality which all of us know exists in the society. So it's a very special legislation made for women, the Domestic Violence Act, and that is why it restricts itself to women. And courts have time and again held that no man can enforce this legislation against anybody else. Now, second most important thing, what is a domestic relationship? So it means a relationship between two persons who live or have at any point of time lived together. So this also gives a very broad and extended meaning to it. So the person need not necessarily be living with the person who commits or committed violence against the person. As long as at any point of time they shared a household or they were in a domestic relationship, and if they underwent some sort of abuse, whatever falls within domestic violence, then they can enforce it. So when they're related by consanguinity, consanguinity means somebody who has a common ancestor, or by marriage, or through a relationship in the nature of marriage. Now, this is another interesting aspect because the law, in order to make this legislation a truly welfare-oriented one, has given a very expansive definition even to marriage. So even if two people are in a live-in relationship, or if two people do not legally register their marriage, or if two people have children together, and for everybody else around them, they just assume that, okay, they are husband and wife by the way they conduct themselves, then automatically it falls within the realm of domestic relationship. So it is not restricted to a legally wedded wife alone. And adoption or our family members living together as a joint family. So it is a very expansive one. And the third most important thing, respondent. Respondent is the person against whom you have a complaint of domestic violence. The Act said it means any adult male person who is or has been in a domestic relationship, once again taking it to the past as well, with the aggrieved person, and against whom the aggrieved person has sought any relief. Now, Under this definition, they have something called a proviso. Anything that starts with the word provided, if you see in any law book, is called a proviso. It just adds an extra meaning to the definition so that in case of any confusion, the clarity is there. So here it says an aggrieved person can also file a complaint against a relative of the husband or the male partner. Now, this was creating a lot of confusion in domestic violence complaints. What happened? Because respondent says any adult male person, but the proviso under it says any relative of the husband or male partner. So any relative, should it be restricted to only men, or can it also include women? For example, definitely a daughter-in-law, she might have been subjected to physical abuse or mental abuse by the mother-in-law, who's another woman. So this confusion started in the initial days of implementation of Act, and it went on for the next 11 years. So finally, in 2016, the Supreme Court said that these words, adult male before the word person, is actually causing a lot of confusion and in fact creating discrimination, because it comes with an assumption that only men can commit violence against women, which is not true at all. So the Supreme Court in 2016 struck down those words, adult male. But unfortunately, till today, in reality, even while dealing with my clients, many police officers or even magistrates who deal with these cases have a confusion as to whether the mother-in-law or the sister-in-law against whom the aggrieved woman has an issue, whether their names can be added as respondent. But know it for sure, all of you, that domestic violence complaint can be filed against any other woman as well, or as long as they were in a domestic relationship with the aggrieved person. Now, one interesting thing, see, law is all about interpretation. So what we lawyers do is when any complaint or any issue comes to us, if we appear for the aggrieved person, then we try and bring a lot of expansiveness to it so that maximum relief is obtained for them. Whereas if you're appearing for the opposite side, the usual argument is we don't fall within the premises of this act, that they cannot file a complaint against us because we do not fall under any of these definitions. So that is the usual argument. For example, in one interesting case, what happened is the man was having an affair with another woman who we usually call as a mistress or a paramour, and she lived in the same household. So the woman had issues with her, and that lady was actually kind of verbally abusing this woman, the wife, the legally wedded wife. So she filed a domestic violence complaint, but still the court said that even though she is in a domestic relationship with you, she does not fall into any of the other definitions, because you are not related by consanguinity, you are not related by marriage, you are not related in through a relationship which is in the nature of marriage or adoption or family members, nothing. So a mistress, even if she resides in the same hold, cannot become a respondent because there is no relationship, there is no domestic relationship. So the court said you cannot, file a complaint under Domestic Violence Act. You can use other regular penal provisions, whatever. But now that adultery is struck down as a penal provision, all that she could do was enforce divorce proceedings against the husband for his illicit affair. So these are some interesting technicalities which usually lawyers play with, but you should be aware of it, because as women and men who are committed to gender rights, we should be able to see through the loopholes and still make out a case for the people who are suffering in such situations. That is why the law gives an expansive approach, both in the criminal side. If criminally you're not able to do something, then you go to the civil forum, which is divorce and other things. So in case one door shuts, then the other door will open, so that in some way the person who is affected has a remedy. Now, finally, who can give a complaint? This is very, very crucial, because all of us again have a misconception that only the aggrieved woman can give a complaint, only the person who has undergone such domestic violence. It is not so. Either the aggrieved person or any other person. It is not even restricted to relative. It can be a friend. It can be a passerby on the street. If anybody has a reason to believe that an act of domestic violence, another interesting thing, has been or is being or is likely to be committed. So in a tea shop, if you overhear a man discussing about him planning to do something to his wife the next day, or I'll take care of her, and if you suspect that something distressing is going to happen, you can very well go to a police station and give a complaint that a act of domestic violence is likely to be committed. So the term complaint or complainant also has been given a very wide interpretation. And I think it kind of casts a duty on all of us to, be socially responsible citizens. So once again, another main thing, after this, we'll just go into some of the cases that I came across, so we have a more realistic understanding. So domestic violence need not be just an act. It need not be a positive act. For example, I take this phone and I hit somebody. It is not just a positive act. It can also be an omission to do something. For example, if a husband is refusing to provide for a child who's living in the house, or if your husband, despite having money, is refusing to provide for you or is depriving you of basic amenities, then it becomes an act of omission. Because when you are in a marital relationship, there are certain expectations from you, which is in the legal field as well, which is expected by law as well. That is why we have all this maintenance, so on and so forth. So it need not just be a positive act of violence, but it can also be an omission to do something which you ought to do, which you ought to have done. So any act, omission, or commission or conduct shall constitute domestic violence if, first thing, it can be either mental or physical. Very, very important. Mental aspect of cruelty, because mental cruelty can be more distressing than physical cruelty many a time. On a daily basis, the woman may be undergoing a lot of trauma because of that. So cruelty includes mental cruelty as well, and which results or causes physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal and emotional, and economic abuse. So how many of you know that domestic violence also constitutes economic abuse? All of you may definitely be aware of sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, and economic abuse. So we will discuss what constitutes economic abuse in some time. And then it harasses, harms, injures, or endangers the aggrieved person with a view to coerce her or any other person related to her. This is a very beautiful definition, because if the husband or if the father-in-law coerces not just the daughter-in-law, but even if he makes a call and coerces the mother of the daughter-in-law or any other female relative of the daughter-in-law for any demand, then it still constitutes domestic violence. So the mother of the daughter-in-law or the daughter-in-law herself on behalf of the mother can institute a domestic violence complaint. So it can include unlawful demand for dowry or other property or any other valuable security. And the third one, it has the effect of threatening the aggrieved person or any person related to her. See, once again, it says any person related to her. Now here another confusion comes. So this any person, we have to once again read it with the main definition, which says that any woman. So the main definition will prevail over the subsequent definitions. So this any person, though it is worded as any person, please remember that only women can institute complaints under domestic violence. And yes, these are other regular stuff. So physical abuse, as all of you know, bodily pain, harm, danger to life. The next slide is visible, right? Can all of you see it?
No, Abhi,
Physical abuse, sexual abuse.
Some basics there.
Okay.
The PPT.
Okay. Now is it visible? Physical abuse?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. All right. So physical abuse, let us quickly just go through it. It includes bodily pain, harm, danger to life, etc. And sexual abuse, all of you are aware of, a very broad interpretation is given. Sexual abuse can also, recently the courts have decided that it need not just be a physical act of it, even showing some degrading signs to the woman and showing signs of sexual torture or causing some sort of sexual distress to the person also comes within the meaning of sexual abuse, and it is an act of domestic violence. And then verbal and emotional abuse like insults, ridicule, name calling, especially insults or ridicule with regard to not having a child or a male child, all of this falls under domestic violence. So we should really be thankful to our lawmakers for thinking from all angles so that maximum protection is given to women. It is a different story as to what happens in reality and how the wheels of justice roll in reality. But all these words, every word is important when it comes to the protection of women in our country. And then even repeated threats. And economic abuse, deprivation of all or any economic or financial resources, especially Shridan. Now, this is a very important thing because many women think that they are not entitled to retain Shridan, which is given by the husband's family. Now, as all of you know, Shridan is the gifts that a woman receives at the time of marriage and immediately sometime after marriage. It can be either from the husband or from the in-laws, so on and so forth. So a woman is actually entitled to a Shridan, and if the husband's family is depriving her of that, then it amounts to economic abuse. In one of the cases that I handled, a mutual consent case, so we made a list of things that the husband had to return, and they were very cunning. Finally, they said that Shridan we gave. Why should she be entitled to it? We cannot retain. So when my client told me about this, I just made a quick call and sent them. So are you expecting us to file a domestic violence complaint against you for retaining Shridan? So, and immediately they wrote off everything and gave. So this is a very important aspect. So all the gifts that a woman receives at the time of wedding, during wedding, and post-wedding in that initial phase, whether it is given by the father-in-law, daughter-in-law, or sister-in-law, father-in-law, mother-in-law, sister-in-law, a woman is legally entitled to that. And also, if the husband, without the permission of the wife, disposes any of her assets, whether it's movable or immovable, again, it constitutes economic abuse, or prohibition or restriction to access to resources or facilities which the aggrieved person is otherwise entitled to by virtue of being the wife or by virtue of being the mother-in-law, so on and so forth. All of this constitutes domestic cruelty, domestic violence. So a woman who is undergoing any of this can file a domestic violence complaint. So if anybody tells you or advises, or when somebody asks you for advice, saying that no, the police is refusing to register a complaint because the husband is not providing for me. The husband is not, I'm a housewife. We decided to be a housewife, but still he is not providing food to me, all of that. You can just tell them very confidently, please go ahead and file a domestic violence complaint because it falls within the realm of domestic violence. All right. So now what are the remedies that we get under law? One thing you have to remember, if you want to file a complaint of domestic violence, you can either do it with the local police station, or there are some people called as protection officers who are appointed under Domestic Violence Act. You can approach them. Or if you are in a situation where there is some grave danger to you, you can just make a call to any of your friends and tell them to lodge a complaint on your behalf. Or you can do it directly with the court, which is the magistrate. So now what are the remedies that we have under law? One is protection order. Now this also is very expansive. The court can in fact direct the abuser to not enter your place of employment or even place where your child is studying if you file a complaint and if you fear that he is capable of such kinds of physical or mental violence. And he can also pass order to stop them from communication as well. The judge or the magistrate who is deciding the matter can pass orders telling them, restraining them from even contacting the aggrieved person, because that may cause some kind of fear. So it's a very expensive one. They can pass orders against them, restricting them to sell any assets. They can pass orders telling the respondent to stop causing violence to any of the relatives or any person who is assisting the aggrieved person. And it is not restricted. Now, this definition itself says such as, and any other act which can be specified. For it can be something which is very remote or something which is very trivial, but still the judge, if he able to convince him through a lawyer that you have these apprehensions, he can pass those kinds of orders. And then residence orders, this is another important aspect. Now, the underlying fact, once again, let me see if residence order is visible to all of you. Yes. All right. So what is residence order? Residence order comes with the legal understanding that every woman is entitled to reside in the house of her husband, or whatever is called as a marital house. Now, how many of us are aware of that? A woman is entitled to be in that house. Nobody can force the woman out of the house. And if anybody forces the woman out of that residence, she can file a complaint under Domestic Violence Act, saying that, please give me a residence order because they are trying to oust me from the house, and it includes your child as well. So residence orders can be passed when you file a domestic violence complaint, directing the respondent or any person who are acting on their behest from disturbing your possession of the shared household. And interestingly, look at point number B. The judge can also tell the person causing the violence to leave the household, directing the respondent to remove himself. So that is the extent of protection given by law. He can tell you get out of the house and the woman you have abused will be staying inside the house. And he can also pass orders restricting not only the respondent or any of his relatives from entering any portion of the shared household in which the aggrieved person resides, so on and so forth. And if the aggrieved person, that is the woman, feels that it is unsafe to stay there despite such orders, then the judge can direct these protection officers who are appointed under the Act to secure some sort of alternate accommodation. They are called as shelter homes. Probably you would have heard it. Now, all of you might think, okay, these orders are passed, but who is going to come and enforce them? Who is going to check on that? So along with these orders, the judge always passes a direction directing the local police station to ensure that these orders are followed. So anytime the woman can give a call or send somebody to the police station if something against happens, and the husband or the respondent will be imprisoned for a certain period of time because it is contempt of court, because it is breach of a court order. All right. Apart from this, even monetary reliefs, medical expenses, etc., discharge of rent, all of that can be passed. So this is the ambit of the Domestic Violence Act. And it is imperative for all of us to understand the expansive realm of domestic cruelty against women. Now, few interesting cases with these. I think I have another 10 minutes, right? With these, I will end it. Law is something which is growing all the time. Law is nothing but experience. Law is taking into consideration our customs and all of that. So some interesting cases. Now, recently what happened in March 2023, a transgender woman had a sex reassignment surgery, and she filed a domestic violence complaint against the husband, asking for maintenance. As you know, I said even monetary reliefs can be obtained under Domestic Violence Act, right? She filed a petition for interim maintenance. The husband, as any other lawyer would have done, said that she does not fall within the definition of aggrieved person because she is technically not a woman. Though she underwent a sex reassignment surgery, she's technically not a woman. Court said, nothing doing. Aggrieved person henceforth cannot be restricted to the general understanding of who a man or a woman is. It is not limited to the binary of women and men, and includes transgender persons who have undergone sex reassignment surgery. Now, this is very vital. It's a very progressive thing which is done by the Bombay High Court. And in fact, our judges, all of them should be made aware of it as well. Because in the light of all of us talking about LGBTQ rights and the Supreme Court saying that, consensual sexual intercourse between people of same gender, so on and so forth, is no longer criminal, this is a very, very progressive thing when it comes to Domestic Violence Act. So even a transgender woman who has undergone a sex reassignment surgery can file a complaint under Domestic Violence Act. That is what the Bombay High Court said in March 2023. Now, what the interesting thing that all of us have to see is now the Supreme Court said that they are not going to give a legal recognition to same-sex marriages. They have directed the Parliament to constitute a committee. Assuming that the Parliament recognizes the marriage, now the question will come, when two women are living together in a domestic relationship, and if one woman commits violence against the other woman, will the other woman be able to enforce domestic violence? From the present status of the law, she cannot, though the definition adult male has been removed by the Supreme Court, still lot of confusion is prevalent. So even if we go and say that, see, she is also a woman and the respondent is gender neutral now, still with the present situation, I highly doubt if a woman can file against another woman if legal protection or legal sanctity is given to same-sex marriages, basically lesbians living together. So the next one is Allahabad High Court now in 2024. So this case was filed. Let me ensure that you can see it. Yes. So this case was filed in decided recently when two daughters filed a domestic violence complaint against the father, saying that the father and the stepmother physically assaulted them and stopped them from pursuing education. Now, once again, the same attack was made by the other lawyer, saying that, first of all, they are daughters, and how can a father commit some sort of domestic violence against daughters, the usual arguments. And secondly, they argued that the daughters were, they finished proper education and they were making some money using tuition classes and all of that. And that the father is an old, infirm and unemployed person. But the court said, no, nothing doing. The daughters are entitled to file a complaint against Domestic Violence Act because economic abuse is done and physical abuse as well. Economic abuse is depriving them from pursuing education, and second one, physically they have been assaulted. So based on another decision of Supreme Court, which I'll tell later, they said that daughters can file domestic violence complaint against father and stepmother as well. Now this was based on another interesting case. Recently in 2005 or 6, a wife filed a case against the husband, against the brother of the husband. The husband passed away a couple of years ago, but the husband, the brother and the wife, all of them were residing in the same house because they were doing a joint family business. So when she filed a petition under domestic violence asking for maintenance, the other side, the husband's brother argued that, come on, I am the brother, and how can I pay maintenance to wife of my brother? Things like that. But the court looked into the broad interpretation of domestic relationship and said, see, through marriage, you have been related. She married your brother, and all of you have for a certain period of time shared a household. So definitely you will also fall within the definition of respondent and you have to pay maintenance. So this was decided by the Supreme Court, and based on that, the Allahabad High Court in January 2024, now this month, said that daughters can file against fathers. And then in January 2024, once again, the Bombay High Court. This case was filed by a mother-in-law against daughter-in-law and her father and brother. And the daughter-in-law questioned this, saying that, there is no domestic relationship between me and the mother-in-law, which I think after listening to this lecture, all of you also must be certain that definitely there's a domestic relationship between both of them. Court refused and said that the parties were related to marriage, once again going by the same logic of the brother of the deceased husband, saying that they were related by marriage, they were family members living together in a joint family, and thereby satisfying domestic relationship. Secondly, respondent can include any person because it is gender neutral. 2016, if you remember, I said the Supreme Court said that it is not restricted to adult male but can include anybody. So here it clarified that mother-in-law can file a complaint against daughter-in-law and her father and brother for under domestic violence. That is why I wanted to clarify the misconception that it is not restricted to just daughters-in-law. The mother-in-law all of them, any woman, sister, widow, so on and so forth, anybody can enforce this act. And then, very, very important, in 2014, the Supreme Court said that even if the parties are divorced, because at a certain point of time in the past, they shared a household, they were in a domestic relationship, even 2 years after divorce, the wife, even 2 years after divorce, the wife can file a petition under domestic violence against the husband. It said that subsequent decree of divorce will not absolve the liability of the respondent from the offense he committed. See, just because the parties got divorced does not mean that whatever he did is fine under the law. It is not so. So the husband said, she is divorced. Both of us divorced. How can you, allow her to enforce domestic violence now, especially 2 years after marriage? Court said the definition clearly says, is or has been. So it includes even divorced women. Please remember that domestic violence is not just somebody who's currently sharing a household, but even after divorce, even after separation, they can enforce it. And 2019, following the Supreme Court decision, Madras High Court also said that DV case can be enforced by divorced women. And then finally in 2019, another interesting case. Here the wife left the matrimonial house and took shelter in her parents' house. So in law, all of you know, right, there's a question of which police station should I file. The general principle is that wherever we are residing, that police station has the jurisdiction to entertain the complaint. But here, the wife was quite scared to go to the husband's place and file a police complaint, because out of fear and mental trauma, she moved to her parents' house. So she filed a complaint in the local police station of her parents' house, and the husband objected to it, saying that that police station doesn't have the jurisdiction. But the court said nothing doing. See, just because she left the matrimonial house doesn't mean that the mental trauma and the psychological distress caused by the husband, including verbal exchanges, left her after that. Just because she physically moved from the house or the shared household doesn't mean that the trauma from it did not continue. So the police station where she's currently residing also can have the jurisdiction to ensure accept a domestic violence complaint. Now, this is also a very, very progressive interpretation, because many lawyers, as usual, will try and argue that she has left the house. Where's the question of domestic violence? It is not so, because domestic violence includes mental, psychological, verbal, all of that. Even if the husband calls the wife continuously and abuses her over phone and makes threats against her, she can still move a domestic violence complaint in her local police station. And finally, the last case that I want to talk about, another one with respect to residence. Here, the in-laws, what they were doing, they were not residing with the daughter-in-law and the husband, but they kept calling on the phone and harassing her. Sometimes when they came to the house also, they harassed her. So this daughter-in-law files a complaint of domestic violence, and they, question it, saying, we don't even live together. There is no shared household. There is no relationship. So how can you file the domestic violence? Court said that mental cruelty is an abstract concept and can be committed even if in-laws reside separately. For one, it varies from person to person. What is normal to one person may seem really abnormal to another person, and that person may be put to a lot of psychological distress. So even if they reside outside, even if they reside separately, still, because they talked over phone, harassed her and spoke bad things about her, humiliated her, and all of that constitute domestic cruelty, and that she can file a domestic violence complaint. So finally, to conclude it all, just know that anything that disrupts a woman's mental or physical safety and well-being, which also includes sexual, economic, psychological, all of that is domestic violence. The law is very generous, the law is broad, the law is expansive, and we should really thank the courts, especially the High Court and the Supreme Court, because though the legislators made these kinds of provisions, in reality, it is the courts that have given a very expansive definition and have not let abusers to escape from the loopholes of the law. So cruelty is something which varies from person to person. See, for example, when you consider divorce, like I said in the beginning, cruelty is a ground for divorce. deprivation of sexual intercourse by husband to wife or wife to husband is considered cruelty, and either party can file for divorce. All of you know that divorce is gender neutral, not like Domestic Violence Act, which is only for women. So deprivation of sexual intercourse is cruelty, and then even filing of false dowry case against husband is also cruelty in the divorce law. I'm not talking about the Domestic Violence Act. So filing a false complaint, the woman harassing the man, all of that will fall under domestic cruelty with respect to the divorce law. So cruelty varies from environment to environment, social status to social status. It depends on people's way of life, temperaments and emotions. And it has the broadest understanding because law is very clear that for a person to live with dignity, mental and psychological well-being is very, very crucial. However, there is just one thing to it. Sorry to say this, because in reality, I come across a lot of cases where women actually abuse this law, and as far as possible, we as gender rights activists should not allow for it. For example, I had a male client in a particular case. I will just end with this. He married a woman. The woman actually hid the fact that she was already married, and immediately after marriage also she was into sexual encounters with her ex-husband, ex-boyfriends, all of that, multiple people. So he filed for divorce, and as a counterblast, she filed a fake case of domestic violence. And you know what happens when we go take the matter to court? I was appearing for the husband in that matter because it was a clear case of abuse of process of law. I asked the court to quash the complaint, saying that, see, I showed all the evidence. This is what has happened. And she lived with him only for 19 days. And it has been more than 1 year since they've gone away. If there was real domestic violence, she would have filed the complaint then and there. But she files it after husband files for divorce. And in open court, she was asking in the lower court, saying, you pay me 5 lakhs, I'll withdraw the complaint. But, you know, when I took the matter to High Court, it came before a lady judge. So usually courts are little restrained when it comes to, you know, quashing complaints filed by women. Because as all of you know, the general truth is that women are the sufferers. But this was a total abuse of process of law, and this case is still pending. So we are trying to sort it out. So I know the man is really suffering and the women abuse the process of law, but in reality, we have to face such situations as well. So be aware of that as well. Not everything that you see here is the truth. Mostly what the media says is not true. From my experience as a lawyer, I would say. And finally, if you know anybody who is undergoing abuse, or if you know, have a friend or somebody who is undergoing abuse, just let them know. Many people these days think it's a matter of shame and that they have to hide it. It is not so. Law is nothing without common sense. And please advise them that if physical abuse starts, it is never going to end. Many people say that it will end, like that movie in Tappad. What a beautiful movie. People say that, okay, it was just in a fit of anger. But trust me, in all the cases that I've experienced, a man who can hit a woman is going to continue it as a pattern. That is at least from most of the cases that I've seen. So at least the woman should be emboldened enough to share it and not hide it thinking that it is shameful. But in reality, I don't know how many women are in such a situation. So we as gender activists, we as people involved in gender discourse can voice out, can help people and put this beautiful law and push the wheels of justice in reality as well. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Sorry, there was some technical problem in the beginning. I couldn't introduce you. Let me take some Let me take some moments to introduce you, Asha Isaac. Actually, she's an advocate and founder partner of Ms. Isaac Chambers law firm, High Court of Judicature at Madras and Madurai. She has been in active practice at the High Court of Judicature and in the Chambers of Senior Advocate. She is also an active member of the Women Advocates Association, High Court Bench at Madurai. She has numerous paper presentation and publications in national and international conferences and seminars. Ma'am, thank you for making us aware about different kinds of violence and give us insights about protection of women from Domestic Violence Act and the social structure that interfere with the implementation of the law in its true spirit. Thank you, ma'am. Once again, sorry. Okay.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
thank you. Thank you.
I think we do have few questions. Can we take it at the last?
Definitely. Sure,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Yeah,
Yes.
so we can take it after Molly ma'am's session. We'll have a discussion
Yes,
session. I think we can take the question.
Definitely.
Yeah, Lakshmi,
Definitely.
please proceed.
Thank you.
Oh, okay, ma'am. Now I would like to hand over the session to Dr. Molly Kuruvilla. Dr. Molly Kuruvilla was a founding director and senior professor at Center for Women's Studies, University of Calicut. She has held on several senior academic positions like Director of UGC Academic Staff College, Director of Institute of Tribal Studies and Research, and Chairperson of the University Complaints Committee that looks into the cases of sexual harassment. Dr. Molly Kuruvilla has 85 research papers published in international journals and books. She's the editor of the recent books, Handbook of Research on Gender Mainstreaming and Women Empowerment, published by IGI Global, California in June 2020. With nearly 3 decades of teaching, research, and counseling experiences, she contributes immensely to the scholarship of education and gender studies. At present, she is advisor to the international organization Asian African Association for Women, Gender and Sexuality. With all due respect and love, I welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you, Lakshmi. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'm so happy and thankful to the vibrant coordinators, Dr. Kamalaveni and Professor Asha Shukla, both of them who are so working incessantly. Throughout the time, they will be working. Whenever I call them, they'll be into some project or the other. And I'm so happy to be part of this program also. Regarding this particular one-week program on gender discourses in society, I think it is rightly scheduled because day after tomorrow, 24th January, is the day when India celebrates its National Girl Child Day. So everywhere during this particular week, there will be programs on gender discourses. So it is rightly scheduled. Another thing is, we are in the 4th year of decade of action. We all know this particular decade, 2020 to 2030, has been designated as the decade of action by the United Nations to attain the 2030 Agenda of Sustainable Development, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So during the first 3 years, we couldn't do much because of this threat of the pandemic. Now that the COVID-19 pandemic is almost under control and we have learned to manage it, the remaining 6 years is a period of activism where countries across the globe, they strive to make all efforts and attempts to attain these goals. Of the 17 SDGs, the 5th goal is gender equality. This gender equality is considered as a prerequisite to attain all the other interconnected, interlinked sustainable development goals. And for achieving gender equality, one of the most important things required is the basic gender sensitization. To achieve this gender sensitization, gender discourses are essential. You know, in the recent new education policy of India, there are several places where the policy suggests gender sensitization of the masses, gender sensitization of the teachers, gender sensitization is essential. Yes, why it is so essential? To attain this particular goal of gender equality, gender sensitization is needed, and I know these 7 days of discourses will definitely contribute immensely, 100% contribution towards gender sensitization. And I think I should start with my PPT. So, Kamala, can you share the PPT, please? In this particular session, I will be focusing on the relevance of gender sensitization and how gender impact women's lives, puts an unfair burden on their life, implicate every aspect of women's lives. That is what I am going to present here. Kamala, can I have the PPT, please?
Yes, ma'am. Love?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, just a minute.
Yeah, okay. I think all of you might have gone through the Global Gender Gap Report that is prepared by the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum every year prepares the report, and the latest report was in June 2023. And as per the report, once you go through that particular report, we will get a clear picture of where the entire globe stands, where our particular nation, India, stands, where our respective states stand with regard to gender gaps. Lot much of gender gap. And this World Economic Forum's report, it focuses on gender gap in 4 areas. In the area of educational attainment, health and survival, economic participation and opportunity, and of course, the 4th component of political attainment or political leadership. Here, we see that lot much of gaps exist between the 2 major genders. Why this much of gap? Of course, there are a few countries where the gap is almost 90% closed. But in majority of the countries, the gap is so wide and so deep. With regard to India, the position is 127 out of 146 countries. So we can assume where India stands with regard to gender parity, what kind of gap exists between the men and women with regard to these 4 areas mentioned. Okay, so now we will move on to this gender sensitization session. See, whenever we hear the word gender, we are made to think about masculine and feminine genders. And with regard to masculine gender, we always allot the muscular mass. The men with the muscular mass, who are brave, who are aggressive, who are protective, who are commanding and control, such kinds of notions come in our mind. And when we think about feminine, the notions come are kids or children. Then the kitchen, the pans and utensils. And luckily in this particular picture, it's a teacher who is having a math test in her hands. So usually our notion is there. What is masculine and what is feminine? But nowadays we know gender is a continuum, and except these binaries, there are several other sexual expressions and orientations which we call as LGBTQ. But why we are having such notions regarding masculinity and femininity? That's a thing that we have to think about. The next slide. This is a statistics prepared by UNDP in 2005. This statistics is relevant even today, not much variation from it. The statistics says women do more than 60% of the hours of work done in the world. But if we go to offices or factories or other workplaces, we see more men than women. In this particular statistics, the unpaid, unrecognized work done by women within the 4 walls of the homes, that's also taken into consideration. And they get only 10% of the world income. We know there are the 50% of world, they are women, but they work 60% of the hours of work and get only 10%. How come such a statistics? That shows the gender bias and discrimination. Majority of women who are employed, they work in the unorganized sector where the pay package depends upon the whims and fancies of the employer. Also, the other work done by women within households, it is unpaid. So this unpaid and underpaid work are responsible for the 10% of women's income. Then comes 1% of the world's property. When it comes to asset ownership, women constitute only 1%. They only have 1% of the world property with them. The 50% of the women, they have only 1% of the property. Here, I thankfully remember the inaugural address where our professor said about there is a need for equal property rights. Our women are totally ignorant about such a right. They do not know whether they have such a right. Even if those who know the right, they are not ready to bargain for it because they are scared about losing the relationship with the men in the family. And if somehow or other, if the girls are given some kind of a share in the property or some kind of assets at the time of marriage, what we call as a stridhan or something, it is immediately taken over or handed over to the husband and in-laws. And women remain dispossessed. So this kind of dispossession, it happens everywhere. And in the developing country context, especially like that of India, it is very high. So this particular statistic clearly reveals the discrimination women face with regard to their work or their rights, their income within the family and outside the family. The next slide. See, this is a picture, a beautiful picture that I always make use of. Whenever we enter into discourses on gender, the immediate question that we face is, what's the matter? It's the same distance. The destination, the goal post, it is at the same distance from the man and the woman. If the woman is smart enough, she can attain the goal. Who is preventing her? What is wrong with, why are you bargaining? You are arguing like this? The answer comes in this picture. See, the particular race course, the man has only 2 hurdles on his way. And these 2 hurdles can be easily sidelined and the man can go forward. What about the woman? You can see a very heavy weight tied on the woman's foot. What is that heavy weight? It is nothing but traditions. The so-called traditions. If at all a girl wants to do a particular course, if she wants to go for some specific, skill training, if she wants to take up some job in some place, everywhere the immediate first response from the family people will be, it is not there in our tradition. So the girl will have to do much of convincing, much of time and effort to convince her people and to go forward. The moment she moves forward, you can see some heavy stones on the road. The kind of abuses, the comments, the negative feedback, or all kinds of discouraging comments made by the neighbors, the friends, and the kinship. She has to give answers to all of them. Then she has to move forward. And there you can see a wired fence, which represents the dons, all kinds of dons imposed upon women. Whereas there are no dons for men, all the dons, different forms. Maybe it is related to her dress, it is related to her body, it is related to her attitudes. So much of negative dons the woman will have to face. After overcoming all these, she has to move forward where some flesh eaters are awaiting her. The girls who are active, they will have to face much of people who are fond of her body. The girls have to be beware of the kinds of approaches, the sex rackets, and the kind of trafficking that Asha ji mentioned earlier, all these are there to hamper her growth, her moving ahead. Somehow, she will have to manage all that. And then the Great Wall of China is there, the institution of marriage, the forced marriage that our professor in the inaugural address mentioned, institution of marriage. It is imposed upon women's lives. This overrating of marriage never happens in the case of boys and men. So, marriage followed by motherhood. Even when marriage is over, motherhood is enforced upon her. She cannot take excuses. I have to complete my PhD. I have to complete this and I'll be getting a promotion ahead. No, no, no. Marriage, once you are married, motherhood is a must. And you see the double standards. Boys or men never face this forced marriage or forced parenthood. It is not upon them. It's all upon women. And again, she'll have to move ahead after convincing all the people or after struggling with the motherhood and all. She reaches the workplace. If she is smart enough, if she has higher aspirations, all kinds of these, what you call, character assassination, negative feedback, discouraging words, she will have to face at the workplace. Overcoming all that, she will have to face the negative or the discouraging face of the boss, the promotions, or coming to an administrative position for a woman. It is difficult, whether it be in academic or in the corporate world or in the political system, wherever it is, coming to the leadership position, a woman will have to struggle that much. And then we say, what's the matter? It's the same distance. So that's the fallacy, the double standards. Whenever we attempt to discuss gender issues, people usually think in such a way. So I think most of the answers are there in this particular picture itself. The next slide. Here I am taking the quotes of Amartya Sen. In his book on Argumentative Indian, in 2001, he proposed that there are three major types of gender inequalities existing in South Asian countries. And India, being a South Asian country, all these kinds of inequalities are quite prominent in India also. In most developing countries, these are there. The first one is natality inequality. All those fetuses that take shape in a woman's womb, they are not permitted to take birth. Because of our son preference and sex-selective abortions, the women fetuses cannot expect to take birth. Several of them are being destroyed in the fetus itself. And you know, we have a kind of sex ratio. In majority of the countries, women's number outnumber that of men. But in countries like that of India, the sex ratio remains skewed. Now it is improving definitely. After the Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, Andolan and like that, it is improving. Mortality inequality. Scientifically, physiologically, women have longer life expectancy than men. But unfortunately, because of the poor health care, because of the poor nutrition, because of different forms of morbidities, and because of gender-based violence, more women than men die before reaching their expected lifespan. They die before that. If we discuss more, I think in the upcoming sessions, in the coming week, there will be sessions on the gender discrimination or gender bias in the healthcare or health system. There will be sessions. Basic facility inequality. Basic facilities beginning from breastfeeding. There are women who are not ready to breastfeed the girl babies just like their boy babies. Boy babies are considered as caretakers in the future. They are considered as to be continuing the family lineage. And naturally, women, the mothers, have a tendency. There are several studies, especially in the northern parts of India. There are several studies, if you Google out, you can see, where the mothers deny breastfeeding to girl babies. They limit it up to 3 months, maximum 6 months, and then they stop. If it's a boy baby, they will continue it up to 3 years or 5 years. Then coming to the health care given to boy baby and girl baby. In the case of, because of a son preference, boys are given best health care, whereas girls are neglected. When it comes to basic education, there is a picture in an upcoming slide where we can see even the basic education, the primary education, gets denied to girls and it is happily being provided to boys. Thanks to our Right to Education Act of 2009, this basic facility of basic education, primary education, is nowadays being extended to girls also. And thereby we are in a position, India especially is in a position to close its gender gap with regard to educational attainment. Then comes special opportunity inequality. If a family has an option that whether it could either provide the opportunity for skill training or for higher education or for a particular job or something, they could give it either to the boy or the girl, the daughter or the son. In most cases, it goes to the son. Because in our cultural tradition, men are the breadwinners. So boys have to become economically secure, economically independent. So all these special opportunities are provided to boys rather than girls. Coming to professional inequality. Do you know there is pre-market labor discrimination? In the labor market, there is pre-market discrimination and post-market discrimination. Employers, they prefer to employ men rather than women in many cases. But if it is in the unorganized sector, informal sector, where the pay package can go down to any limit, they will choose for women. If it is a high-paid, high-skilled, or a prestigious position, men are preferred. Decision-making positions, of course, to men. We can argue there are Chanda, Kochar, so and so in corporate sector, but their number is very few. The professional inequality exists in the pre-market labor, in the pre-market conditions. Once after getting employed, there is post-market discrimination, where the wage gap between the genders, gender gap in wages, it is an issue very common even in the most developed countries also. When men and women do the same work, especially in the corporate sector, men get a bigger pay package than women. Also, with regard to promotions and all, promotions often goes to men rather than women. But if the women are so determined, so hardworking, who could prove their abilities, efficiency that much, a few of them may get opportunity to come to the leadership positions, administrative positions. But men can easily reach such positions because that promotion is favored by the entire family, their colleagues, and even by the superiors. But that is not the case of women. Coming to ownership inequality. Ownership inequality is what is mentioned in 1% of world property is owned by women. Men are considered as breadwinners, as protectors of women. Thereby, in spite of all our legal provisions, there exists ownership inequality. You know, in Muslim community, the daughters get 50% of what the brothers get. But you know, in a recent study, my scholar is doing it and she's about to submit her thesis next week on property rights and asset ownership. What you see is those Muslim women who are given property of 50%, in most cases, that particular landed property will be either non-cultivable or without a road access or in deplorable conditions. But with regard to men, it is different. In the case of Christian and Hindu women, thanks to the latest amendments and all, what has happened is daughters are likely to get, yes, it is their right to get equal property, asset ownership in inheritance, just like their sons or brothers. But what is happening? How many of the women own property? Somehow or other, they are denied their equal rights. There are numerous reasons. A list of reasons are there. And women remain dispossessed. Coming to household inequality. Within household, all the monotonous work are assigned to the women in the household. Even if the woman is working or employed outside, she will have to finish all the work inside and then go for work. Here, what our professor said in the inaugural address, equal sharing of responsibility is lacking in Indian families. In one of my studies during pandemic, I could see instances where men and boys started sharing the household responsibilities. But after 2-3 years, if I repeat the study, I don't think those who were willing to share the responsibility might be doing it now. At that time, during the pandemic, when confined within households, they were ready to do it. Because in our tradition, it is the responsibility of women, not men. See, these kind of traditions often hinder or pull back men and women from moving ahead. It holds back men from even sharing responsibilities. And as a result of this household inequalities, women, they are at a heavy loss. Working women, if they are going to attend a meeting, men colleagues, they will be preparing for the meeting, reading through the agenda, preparing for the points to be put forth during the meeting and all. What about women? They will have to finish all the work at home. And by that time, she will be so tired and all. And on her way to the office, she will have to go through the agenda. I have seen several women doing that. I myself have done that. And there are women who say, I don't want to work outside because I'm not able to finish all the work at home and then excel at the workplace. So I don't want to work at all. The unfair burden of household responsibilities always fall on women. These 7 inequalities were mentioned by Amartya Sen in 2001. But now, in the current society, we will have to add 2 more things: the leadership inequality and the gender-based violence. Leadership inequality, you know. In academic leadership, how many women are there as vice chancellors, registrars, or finance officers, members of syndicate or executive councils? When it comes to corporate leadership, what's the percentage of women in leadership position, administrative positions, CEOs? When it comes to political leadership, globally it is less than 25% women in parliaments. Even in India, now we have the highest number of women in parliament, but it is still less than 15% of the total. Religious leadership, we can count only very few women as religious leaders. Why is it so? So this is also a consequence of the gender bias, the discrimination hidden in our traditions. And there are certain other concepts adding to it with regard to religious leadership and all. And I think if we have time ahead or some, maybe other experts in other sessions will be discussing on it. Concepts like gender division of labor, concepts like biological determinism, which all add to the traditional concepts, misconceptions. Coming to gender-based violence, Miss Abisha, she was speaking on that, gender-based violence. I remember Thomson Reuters report in 2018-19 time, where India was regarded as the country which is most dangerous to women to live. Now, there are other countries on top of India, but still, women who live in India knows how we have to be beware of any type of violence coming against us while we are traveling in a public transport system or while at the workplace, even within homes, on the roads. Everywhere, there is a hidden threat. It can come against at any time. And gender-based violence takes different forms, one among which the domestic violence was highlighted in the previous session. Different other forms of gender-based violence. And in one of my recent scholars' study, it is found that this gender-based violence is affecting mental health of women, long-lasting impact. They remain helpless. They are not even capable of moving out of this abusive relationship. And when we ask them, why don't you move out of this? Several of them said, we have no place to go. Our native families are not willing to accept us. We don't have any property or house. We are not employed. We have no income. Where will we go? And filing a complaint and getting any kind of penalties or any kind of monetary benefits will take a long time. Where will she go? So they decided, at least our children will have a father. They work hard. The man will be drinking, the drunken husband, creating all kinds of chaos at the home, but still they have a place to live. And the children can claim to have a father. So they remain in that abusive relationship. So different forms of gender-based violence, the sexual harassment, everywhere it is directed at them. The cyber crimes, these are all increasing every year. The more and more women start coming out into the public realm, the violence against them is also increasing. So these kind of inequalities exist in our society. Next. Yeah, this is one picture that I mentioned before, where the younger boy is taken to the school. The boy is so proud, the father is more proud. What about the girl? Her unfulfilled aspiration. She also wants to go to school. But now, because of the Right to Education Act, this condition is changing. But when it comes to higher education, Till now, this gender bias exists in several corners of India and in several parts of the world. Next slide. Yeah, this is the condition of employed women in the country now. You know, the work participation rate of women in India is less than half of the percentage of men's work participation rate. It is also due to the traditional concepts regarding women's gender roles, the homemaker, caregiver. And if you want to go out for employment, definitely you have to finish all these jobs. She needs multiple hands. Okay? One side cooking, packing the baby to the crush, then ironing the clothes, then doing all the office work, preparing the reports. And several of these employed women, they face role conflicts due to their struggle to manage personal and professional work, professional responsibilities. But if a man is going to work, to the workplace, everything is ready for him. He just have to have the bath, have the food, take the tiffin, go, let go. What about a woman? So that's why in our study on mental health, role conflict faced by employed women was an important concept found there. At least that study was conducted in Kerala. The most literate, educated, high development indicators and all, despite all that, women still have to face lot much of struggles to manage these two. The next slide. Yeah, this is what I mentioned. Throughout the globe, even in developed countries, in the corporate sector, men will get a bigger package than that of women. They are doing the same work, similar work, but still being a man warrants bigger package, pay package. The next one, next slide. Coming to promotions. Women have no role models. They don't get any support from their colleagues or the boss, and even the family support. She will be discouraged. If at all a woman get a chance for higher promotion, immediately the family will mention about the need for late hour work or the need for transfer. So no need to go for, you need to work only. So you can work. No need to work at the higher positions. But if a man is getting a chance for promotion, he will get all support from family. The family is ready to pack up immediately and move with him to the transferred, highly promoted position to that particular place. The whole family moves. Even if the wife loses her job, they will move along with the man. He gets support from colleagues and the boss. And men have lot of role models as administrators. So this is the condition of women. And of course, the glass ceiling concept is there. I think somebody in the future sessions will explain about it. The next session, please. Next slide. Yeah, this is what I mentioned about property rights. The property rights in Indian context is governed by the personal laws. Hindu, Muslim, Christian personal laws. But there we can see, irrespective of the law, there is a kind of unity between all the three when it comes to property rights in denying the property rights to women. That unity is visible. Next slide. Yeah. This is the household inequality. See, the father of the family is resting on the sofa with a cup of coffee and a newspaper. He is reading out the report. Oh, the gender equality. India is falling. India's rank is 114 out of 142 countries on gender equality, and he's so sad about it. He's doing the lip service without giving any help, rendering any help to the wife. See, the small son, that baby is crying for the mother. The elder daughter, she is crying for help with her homework. The milkman is calling, I am waiting, come fast. The cooker is whistling, washing machine is on, the tap is overflowing, whatever happens there, the head of the household, as we say, the man, he is very happy doing the lip service that India is having such a low rank with regard to gender equality. This lip service we see everywhere, even in educational institutions, by the political leaders. They all do this lip service only without doing what they could do, any help, any positive initiative to favor gender equality, they will do this. Next slide. Here are some interesting pictures. This is the end of our session. So these interesting pictures will be, I think you will be happy to see them. A boy and a girl studied together. They were friends. They decided to marry. They used to call names or even other things mutually. Once they decide to get married, and they get married, the man will assume that particular dominant position of a husband. I need to be the breadwinner in this family. Whereby the wife, she will have to hand over her earnings to the husband, the decision maker. One important aspect that we notice is that women who are earning money, they have no control over their earnings. Very few women have control over their earnings. I have conducted several studies in the Kerala context. Among academicians, among university teachers, college teachers, among housewives, and also among women at the grassroots level who work in the so-called Puducherry units. And they work in NRGP and all. Several of them, majority of them, will have to report to the husband what they have earned, what they are earning. And in most of the cases, women, even the college lecturers and university teachers, will have to get a permission from the husband to utilize their earnings. At the grassroots level, they won't get any permission or anything. There is no question of taking any permission. The husband will grab the money and they will use it as they wish. Studies report like that. So, without having any control over one's earnings, undergoing all these role conflicts, what will happen to women? Will they be happy? What about their mental health? Next slide. So, they are married, both of them are working, but in the early days of marriage, the girl will be very happy, wife will be very happy to iron the dress for the man, and the man will enjoy it like anything. Next slide. Yeah, the woman is pregnant. The man enjoys his rest. The woman will have to do the mopping and all the work at home. Next slide. These are things that happen in real life. The baby is born. Still, the man is taking rest on the sofa, and she has to work. She has to mop the floor carrying the baby. This is not exaggeration. This is what is happening in many homes. Because the man considers this is not his responsibility. It is the responsibility of the wife. Then why should I bother about it? Next slide. The babies are grown big. Even then what will happen? The mother, even if she is employed, will have to do the household chores. Only one example is given here, mopping the floor. The next slide. They are both retired hands. And still look at the attitude of the man. The wife, after her menopause and all, is tired and weak, but still she has to cook and serve the husband. In majority of Indian homes, this is the situation. And where is gender equality? There are many hidden pathways which are not discussed in my quick presentation, whereby the women feel so discouraged, demotivated, helpless, tired, which all affect her health, physical and mental health. her total wellness and happiness, well-being and happiness. Next slide. See, there are several social institutions where the gender bias is deeply hidden. The lip service done by the principal of the school. Of course, girls and boys are equal. And when the girls and boys look at the textbook, what they see? The man going out for work, the gender stereotype. Man doing work outside. Woman cooking food inside. The stereotype is still, even after several revisions, we see these kinds of what you call gender bias. And we have done work on pictorial representation and the hidden gender bias. A beautiful publication is there. Even just 4 years before, the primary school books in Kerala school syllabus, language textbooks, the pictorial depictions for primary school children, there will be totally pictures. All those pictures were taken and looked at with a gender lens. And you could see a number of bias in each and every picture. So this is the condition of our books. The next slide. See, growing children go through these kinds of storybooks where it says, scrubbing the floor is my duty because I am a woman. What will happen to a young girl and a young boy going through these fairy tales or books? What kind of notion they could develop from it? Next picture, next. Yeah, this is another thing that happened in the growing ages of children in the school. You can simply deny it. It is not happening, but it is actually happening in several schools. Boys are given the responsibilities for leadership. So and so thing, collect things, put it there, go to the so and so like that. But girls, cleaning, mopping, it is done by girls rather than boys. Next picture, next slide. When it comes to media, the gender stereotypes of what a man and a woman should be, but how they should dress, how they should behave, what roles they have to do. Such kinds of notions are sustained by the education institutions and the media. See, here there is an advertisement of a mop. Who is holding the mop? There is an advertisement of a bag, office bag. Who is wearing the office bag? So this kind of bias in the media, it is quite prominent that its influence is so deep. Next one. We rarely see such pictures. Men holding a baby. No. Even if he holds a baby, a picture is there, he will be shown as so tired. He cannot manage. Next one. Everything is gendered. Gender has gone to the extent for having different toothpaste for men and women. The tooth in our mouth, they are also getting gendered. Different toothpaste. Next, you know, the perfumes, different types of perfumes for men and women. Everything is gendered. Now, coming to, I'll conclude in 5 minutes. So, these kind of biases, discriminations exist in every sphere of life. I have given a glance through the economic participation, political participation, and so on. But what is the way ahead? Gender equality is our goal. To attain that goal, the means is gender equity. Whichever gender is lagging behind, whoever is lacking more, they must be given more of, maybe it is funds or accessories or skill training or opportunities. It must be given more to the gender who are lagging behind. This is the concept of gender mainstreaming. Universally, it is the accepted strategy to attain gender equality, gender mainstreaming. Whenever we implement any program at the local level, national level, international level, whether it be done by state government or by any agency or NGO, gender mainstreaming must be done. Just do a gender analysis. Where are the men? Where are the women? Where are the other genders? Who are lagging behind? Who are being suffering more? They must be given more opportunities. And that kind of gender mainstreaming is the strategy that across the globe, all the countries are following to attain the sustainable development goal. Next slide. Next. Yeah. Usually the gender bias cleaning, deleting, elimination of gender bias, that duty is usually given to women, either in the academics, the women's studies centers, or the women activists, or women's rights personnel, maybe lawyers. All these women, they are assigned the work of eliminating gender bias. That is unfair and that is not the correct way. Whatever is required is, we must, next slide. Yeah, whatever is required is all men, all women, all genders, we must all work together to make a difference. Definitely education is the best means, but that education itself, that system itself is entrenched with bias. So where we have to start? We have to start at different levels. At the individual level, bringing about changes in our mindset. To accept, boys have to accept girls as equals. Girls have to accept, they have to discover their identities, their individuality. They must feel proud of themselves. The submissiveness or the kind of inferiority complex should be thrown out. The parents may insulate, grandparents may try to insulate. No, the smart girls of the today world, they have to think beyond. They should feel proud of their individuality, their capabilities. And the youngsters have the support of elders, people like me or Asha ji and all. We are there to support you in everything. And you have to bargain for, you have to grab your space, your voice, and your rights. Nobody is going to grant you. You have to bargain for it. You have to grab it. Conferences like this will let you know, all the men and women, all the boys and girls, what are the rights of women. And men and women should fight against the deep-rooted notions, the stereotypes, break them, and facilitate the growth of girls and women moving ahead from the margins to the mainstream. Let us do all that we could do in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for shedding light on how so-called safe and secure spaces like family sites perpetuating inequality and gender-based injustice. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for being a part of this event. So,
Thank you.
uh, now let's move on to the discussion session. If anyone of you have any questions to ask, you can ask.
I think there are 2 questions posted in the message box to Abhi. I think Abhi, I have shared with you.
Yes, ma'am. Let me just open both of that.
Yeah.
So the first one is whether I have come across LGBTQ and gender non-binary couple who have to undergo repressive torture of heteronormative setup in the context of domestic violence. Well, I have not come across directly, but because I am a lawyer, I come across a lot of different cases dealing with LGBTQ rights and LGBTQ people in the context of domestic violence. So one of the cases I discussed where a transgender person underwent a sex reassignment surgery. So usually this happens in the context of property dispute or property sharing and things like that, because the law does not have a concrete rule with respect to the legitimacy of LGBTQ relationships or LGBTQ marriages. As of now, it is decriminalized. And the law says that right to life includes the right to sexual orientation as well. And each person can decide what they want to do with respect to their private life, with respect to their sexual choices. But with respect to domestic violence, very sporadic cases, very few cases here and there, but the courts are viewing them from a very progressive lens. Like I showed the example of the Bombay High Court, and their rights are being recognized and enforced in terms of domestic violence as well. And secondly, another person had asked about whether an elderly woman who's being abused by her sons will fall within the realm of domestic violence. Yes, definitely. It includes any woman, irrespective of their position or status in the family. So it does include a mother who's being abused by her own children or her daughter-in-law or son-in-law, whoever. And any woman in the capacity of widow or sister or mother or daughter-in-law, mother-in-law, aunt, uncle, as long as they share some sort of domestic relationship, they do fall within the purview of the Domestic Violence Act. So yes, an elderly woman, whether young or old, if she's abused by her family members, she can enforce the Domestic Violence Act. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Abhi. I think you have addressed the question. Molly ma'am, I think you have two questions. First question is, how I have shared it on the WhatsApp, but still I'll read it for you, ma'am. How you are going to relate your argument with Dennis Candiotti's phenomenal work on patriarchal bargain, in which women also internalize and interpolate the same ideology and curtail the freedom of their daughter-in-law?
Yes. Actually, women who are born and brought up in the patriarchal societal setup, they might have imbibed all the patriarchal values, norms. They have imbibed it. So naturally, they have a tendency to pull back their daughters. Here, the daughters require much of efforts to convince their patriarchal mothers. And there, the teachers can support the daughters or their friends, whoever are gender sensitized, could help her to overcome that kind of pushbacks or pullbacks from the mother. And also, we are conducting many gender sensitization campaigns, especially the women's study centers and the NGOs. They do gender sensitization programs at the grassroots level, where we invite the parents, the parental generation, especially the elders. We invite them, we talk to them, we interact with them in the most polite, gentle way, and we convince them what has happened to their life. That is not to be repeated in the case of your daughters. The society has changed a lot. The needs of the present are totally different. So they might be happy with being a housewife and at home, but that is not the condition today. The cost of living has increased. Both husband and wife has to work. The girls have to go for higher education. And also, today's girls are very smart. I usually tell them like that. In the past also, the girls were smart, but they couldn't achieve whatever we wanted them from them. But now we say, your daughters are very smart. They are very capable. Let them come out. Let them become great. And you can feel proud of them once they become great achievers. So likewise, we motivate the mothers. and the fathers who pull them back. So the teachers have a role, NGOs have a role, and the friends, they all can take a role in convincing such parents who are, we cannot blame them. They are fruits who have imbibed all those patriarchal values in their childhood. They have gone through abuse and all at their mother-in-law's hands. Such kind of women, they need a lot more of convincing from outside, all the gender activists. But we have to be very careful in approaching them. That's another thing.
Yes, ma'am. So your second question is, you haven't mentioned anything regarding the interlocking system of intersectional gender discrimination.
Yeah, that itself, I think, is a thing that requires a full session. The intersection of gender, caste, and income, all these intersections are quite very difficult. See, a girl, usually we always focus on the Dalit or the lower caste women, and we say they are facing much of problems when compared to others. But you know, in a recent study in Kerala, we got very surprising result. Very surprising result that the women who belong to the what do you call SC/ST group, they have better mental health conditions, they have better employment than their counterparts who are in the middle class or who are in the higher caste. So caste in this case, in our study, was found to be having some kind of, the lower caste were having an upper hand with regard to their mental health when compared to their counterparts. And in majority of the literature we see, women in the lower caste, they suffer a lot at the hands of the upper caste. It might have been true, but it is also changing a lot. Much of changes are happening. And we had a feeling that the upper class women, they don't have any issue. They don't face poverty, but they are in a better position and all. That is a fallacy. It is not true at all. They also have problems. So we can see a kind of interlinkage between all these. Who is at the best side, at the positive side, or who is having more suffering, we cannot say. Several factors come into play, several factors. So that we have to discuss with cases, case studies. Maybe in just another session, we can do that, the intersectionality.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. I think we have come to the end of session. So anybody else, if you have question, I think we can just take 2 minutes and wind up the session. So I think we'll come to an end of the session, ma'am. So Abhisha ma'am and Moli ma'am, thank you so much for your wonderful, excellent presentation that you have given us. You have shared enough knowledge with us. Thank you so much, ma'am. So looking forward to all of you to come back and participate again at tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Thank you all so much, ma'am. For now.